Before we start this video, a large thank you to Runkai, Josh, William, Jeffrey, Adam, Tunks, Juan, Kieski, Dean, Nicholas, and Javier for their support on Patreon. I hope you guys enjoy the video. Alright guys, let's finish up the equipment screen and equip armor from the body slot, the leg slot, and the hand slot. So let's open up the left panel here and go down to the UI background of the armor, and you can see we have the head slot done. Right now we have a script called head equipment slot UI. Let's actually add the body, leg, and hand scripts respectively. So in this episode, I'm going to go in a little bit faster because we're doing the exact same thing as the last episode, but we're doing it for all three remaining slots. And we're going to do it very neat and organized. We're going to tackle the sections of each slot all together at the same time with all the three different types. So just follow along. If you want to, you can actually do this on your own if you know what to do. Actually, it would be a good idea to attempt this on your own just to see if you can do it. I encourage you to do so. But if not, you can follow along with me or just listen to me as you do it. So first, I'm going to create these three scripts like so, and I'm going to open them up. And I'm actually going to rename helmet item to item. This is on the head equipment slot. The reason why I'm doing this is because I'm going to copy and paste everything inside here, and it's just convenient if we keep the variable name the same. So I'm also going to say using UnityEngine.ui across every single one of these new scripts, and I'm going to, of course, as is per tradition, copy my namespace and paste it across all three. So again, this is going to be more of a speedy video. We're going to do all three in the same time span it took us to do one last time, but we're going to do them all together, and it will be the exact same process. So we're making the inventory. We're syncing the inventory to load items when you open up your inventory screen. We're enabling switching out equipment by hitting those buttons specifically, etc., etc. So I'm going to delete the start and update method from all these, and I'm going to go to the head equipment slot UI script, and I'm literally going to copy the entirety of the script and paste it into the body equipment slot UI script. So when I go in there, all I have to change, because I've already changed the name of the variable to item, instead of calling it calling the variable helmet equipment, we're going to say torso equipment. I'm then going to rename that to body equipment to stay in the naming convention realm. You don't have to do that. And then down here, I'm going to rename helmet equipment to body equipment, and then change the type to body equipment. And that's all we'll actually need to change in this part of the function, or this part of the script rather. And it will be the same for the next two, the legs and the hands. This makes this thing basically copy and paste. Now on select this slot, let's change it from head to body. We don't have that made yet, so what we have to do now is open up our player's UI manager, and right here where we have public bool head equipment slot selected, copy that, paste it 3 more times, and make a body, legs, and hand. So basically we're notifying the script whenever we select one of these slots, and then depending on which slot we have selected, we actually have some actions we can do. So in the case of our equipment, it lets us change our equipment from the equipment screen or the inventory screen. All right, now that that's done, you can copy the entirety of this script and paste it again on the leg equipment slot UI script. You can see the trend here. Change the variable type body equipment to leg equipment. Do the same thing in the add item function, but first rename this body equipment to leg equipment. And then down where you have select this slot, you change it from the body slot being selected to the leg slot being selected. So we're going to do this lastly again one more time for the hand equipment slot UI. Change the variable type from body equipment to hand equipment. Change the variable type here again from body equipment to hand equipment, and rename body equipment to hand equipment. And then lastly, down here on the on slot selected, we're going to say UI manager dot hand equipment slot selected equals true. All right, save that, and now we're good to move on to the next. So you can see we have 3 steps here. What we're doing is we're actually opening up our inventory, and then we're closing out the equipment screen. So duplicate the head equipment inventory window 3 times, make a body equipment inventory window, and then you want to actually lower or open up the hierarchy more on this, and you'll see there's actually a couple of things to rename. So we're going to have body equipment item inventory, and then we're going to have the inventory slot parent, that's fine, and then the body equipment inventory slot. We'll get to that script after this. And now do the same thing, just rename it all first for the legs and hands. And while I do this now, I will talk over this a little bit and kind of get more into what we're going to do. So basically, we're going to hit the UI slot button. That will open up an inventory for their respective equipment. So body opens up the body inventory. And then we load all the body equipment in our inventory to the UI. And then whichever one we click, we equipped and swap out for the one on our main equipment window. So it's a very simple process. And we're doing this for the last 3 remaining equipment types, which is body, legs, and hands. Okay, so when you get all this renamed here now, make sure you're actually renaming the child of the main game objects too, or else you're going to be confused when you have to drag these into the variable slots, because you'll have body where your head is supposed to be, or vice versa. Okay, so now that that's done, we want to actually go down here now to the head equipment inventory slot script, open it up. And I'm going to drag it all the way here to the right so it's not confusing, and we know what we're working with. We're not getting confused with the last scripts we just opened up. And then go down to the inventory slot where the script is found, and on the body, remove the script and make one called body equipment inventory slot. On the leg equipment inventory slot, remove the head equipment inventory slot script if you've copied it, and again, make one that's called leg equipment inventory slot script, and then do the exact same thing for the hand. Now again, you could make a base class for all these if you're feeling like you want to do it. I actually have that done on my other project that myself and Rob are working on, and another friend. But it really, there's no real difference. It just comes down to preference as to how you want to call these things. But a base class could work here. You could have a base class of type inventory slot, and then all you would have to do is basically change the type of item that it holds. Okay, so open up all of these scripts, and like so, first we're going to start off by actually copying the using Unity engine.ui, because we're going to be working with the images. That's how we know what item is in each slot. So put the using Unity engine.ui across your 3 new scripts, and then, as is per tradition, I'm going to take my namespace again across all 3 of these scripts, and then I'm going to delete the start and update method. So this is actually much the same as we just did. We're just going to basically copy the contents of the head equipment inventory slot script and paste it into each of these, and we're going to change a couple things, like when we call upon the equip this item function. That will be a little bit different, obviously. But other than that, it is much the same, so not much confusion should come of this. You should be able to do this just fine. So let's change this helmet equipment to body equipment, and then change this helmet equipment to body equipment under the add item function. And then come down here and clear item looks good. Now under equip this item, we have to obviously, we're not going to equip a helmet here in the body slot, so change wherever you see helmet, change that to body, and you'll be fine. Now, you're going to get an error though when you get down right here, because we don't have a body equipment inventory. So what we need to do is actually go down and create one. And also I'm going to rename current torso equipment to current body equipment to, again, stay with the naming conventions. I like body more than torso. You don't have to rename that though. But now let's go to your player inventory manager, and you can see we have head equipment inventory. Let's make a public list of body equipment, and we'll call that body equipment inventory. Do the same thing for your legs and your hands. Now you can have a master inventory, and you can just search for these items by item type, but or you can also just have separate lists like this. I do one full list in my other project, but again, both are the same. It just comes down to preference. I just thought I'd show you this way because I find it a bit simpler and easier to read most of the time. So now down here, you want to change head equipment to body equipment inventory. Whoops, not head body inventory. That's wrong. We're going to change that to body equipment inventory. And wherever you see helmet, you want to replace that with body, like so. And that's it. So basically what we're doing here is if we're wearing any body item, when we go to change it, we're going to put the old one in our inventory and remove it, remove the new one from inventory and put the new one onto our equipment slot. So you don't duplicate the item basically. And it's the same thing that was listed on the head equipment. Now right here we have something you have to do under UI manager reset all selected slots. We want to add our new slots here too, and so we turn those off when we're done. That way we don't have them left on after we've made our equipment selection. So to say body equipment selected, body equipment slot selected equals false, and the legs and the hands the same thing. You got it. And we're basically good for this portion here now. So let's copy all of this again, and let's do this again for the leg equipment slot, the leg equipment inventory slot, sorry. So again, starting off here, we change the variable type body to leg, and then on the add item function, we're changing that too from body equipment to leg. And since we have a neutral term called new item, we don't have to change any of the variable names there. So that's kind of a, planning ahead. Then we're going to go to the leg equipment slot selected. If we have the leg equipment slot selected, we're going to basically check to see if we're wearing leg equipment on our leg slot. And then we're going to do the same thing. If we have some on, take it off, put it in our leg inventory, and then put our new one on and remove our new one from our leg inventory. The exact same process as before. That's what's nice about this. When you have the foundation laid out, you can kind of just, if something is similar, obviously you have these 4 equipment slots, you can reuse this logic over and over, so it's good. And now let's do the exact same thing on our last one, our hand equipment inventory slot. There we go. I hope I'm not moving too fast for you guys, but again, if you're up to this episode by now, I'm going to have a safe assumption that you can keep pace pretty well and you know what you're doing. So let's just change this now, body to hand, and I'm going to take a sip of tea. Okay, so now that we almost have this done, we're actually about halfway now, I would say. We have what we have left to do is basically load the equipment icons and update the equipment window. And we have to actually load the inventory slots when we open up our inventory. So we'll get to that in a second. So now over here in the head slot, as you can see, we're opening head inventory, we're closing the equipment screen window, and then we're saying select this slot. So now we have everything in place to do that. So let's highlight all three of these and make 3 on-click events, okay? And the first one we're going to do is if we go here and click on this slot here, let's just drag in the the body inventory screen and enable that game object. So game object set active is equal to true. And then on the leg slot, let's haul in the leg equipment inventory screen. Again, set this game object to true. This opens up the inventory when you click it. And then do the same thing for the hands, set that to true. We're good to go. All right, you can highlight all 3 of these again if you click here. This is what we need to hide. So let's highlight all of these and drag in the equipment screen window down here in the second function. And let's set this game object set active to false, or the second on-click event rather. And then the last one, what we need to do is actually use the scripts we just made and hit select this slot. So drag in the body slot on the body slots one, go down here body slot equipment UI and click select this slot. And as we know, that notifies the UI manager like, hey, we're choosing our body equipment slot to perform an action with. Do the same thing with the leg and then the hands. Okay. So now that that's done, we actually have to create some variables on the UI manager to support our new inventories. But before we do that, let's actually go down here and drag in the item icons. As you can see on the body slot here, it's called item icon, last one on the hierarchy. Do the same thing for legs and hands. This is the item that change, or the image that changes rather, if you have something equipped. So now down here on the inventory slots, do the same thing. There's an icon variable. Make sure just last on the hierarchy, it's just called icon. If you don't do that, then basically when you open your inventory, it won't work, or you won't see the inventory's icons appear in your slots. And I'm just going to check here on the head to make sure that's fine. Yes, it is. We did the last video. Okay, now over here on the player UI manager script, or the UI manager script rather, what we want to do is, as you can see here, we have update UI. We have one for weapons. We have one for head. So what we're going to do is make a comment here, body equipment inventory slots, and then leg equipment inventory slots, and then hand equipment inventory slots. So it's going to be the exact same thing. We're sorting out, we're using a for loop to compare what's in our inventory against some variables we're going to make, and then we're going to populate the inventory screen using the items in our inventory. So let's go here, and where we have head equipment inventory, these 3 variables, nice and neat and laid out, let's paste this here and call this body equipment inventory. And again, it's a fun game of just replacing the word head with body, and you can do everything exactly the same. So head equipment, body, and then head equipment, body. And make sure you change the variable type here too from head equipment inventory slot to body equipment inventory slot. And there we go. And I believe we have a call on awake too, but we'll get to that in a second. So let's change this now to leg from body. And then lastly, we'll do from leg to hand. And I'm really a giant fan of how we're going about this, because it's really easy to just, I can see what everything does very easily here. It's neat to me, so I'm a fan of how we're handling this. All right, so hand, and hands. And then we're going to go down to the awake method. And we're actually declaring the array down here. So what you want to do is say body equipment inventory slots equals. And actually, we're just going to copy that right here from head equipment and just change the word again, because it's exactly the same if you're using the same naming convention except for one word. So replace head with body and replace the variable type from head equipment inventory slot to body equipment inventory slot, and you're good to go. Okay, next do the same thing for legs and hands. And I'm willing to bet a lot of you are probably just listening to this and you know what to do, so that's cool. Okay. Now that we're done that, we actually have to add in the functionality to actually populate the inventory screen when it opens up. So as we know, we're using the transform parent to instantiate or spawn a copy of the inventory prefab. Whoops, forgot to change this variable type. And then it just, because there's an organization group on it, or layout group, it just kind of, forms a grid. So we're just going to copy the head right here in the body. And this is, again, make sure you go slow here because it's easy to mess this up. Replace any keyword with head with body. So we're going to just compare this against our body equipment inventory slots.length. And then we're going to compare that with our player inventory manager.body equipment inventory.count. So basically, how many body or pieces of body equipment do you have in your inventory? Does it match up to the slots? If not, then create a new slot and make that slot hold the piece of armor from your inventory. And if there's nothing there, then we're going to clear the slot. And this is, again, the same logic as we did in the previous video. We're going to do this for the body, legs, and hands. And after that, I believe we have, one more step left, maybe two, and we're good to go. I think we have to update the actual equipment screen, the little icons. And I think that might be it, but we'll see. Let's copy this here now, put this down here and do the same thing. So while I'm doing this, again, I'm going to talk over this because, again, this is the exact same process. I don't need to repeat myself for you again. We're going to do this, and then in the next video, I'm going to start creating or prototyping the equipment stats window in the middle of the screen. So basically, when you mouse over or select an equipment slot, we're going to actually load its values or defenses, name, description, all that good stuff on a middle window on the screen. So we'll handle that. We can also do a cool thing there. We display weapons damages, etc., etc. It'll just really be able to display all the data about your items, which is really cool. So I'd say that will be a couple episodes at least, possibly 3 if I really want to get into doing everything with it, like the switching out for the description of the screen and stuff like that. But let me know if you guys want to see anything specifically on the UI in the next couple of videos, because I'm definitely on a bit of a UI kick right now. We've neglected it for a while, and it's cool that we're going to get to piece it all together. We actually have a lot of the processes done now for the combat, many of them. We have to polish some things, but it's cool that it's all coming together now and starting to feel like a full game. All right, so let's just change all of this to hand, change the variable type to hand. And let's go now and see what else we have to do. Save this. Whoops, not body equipment inventory, hand. There we go. All right, save that. Now minimize the screen. Drink some tea. Okay, now be sure to drag in your variables. So now here, under the body equipment inventory, we have to drag in the inventory slot, prefab, and the parent. So do that for the body, legs, and hand. Now remember, the parent is the thing that your inventory slots are basically being created under. So we use that because the parent has a layout group on it, and every time we create a new inventory slot for each item in our inventory to display it, it gets parented under this parent, and then the parent automatically organizes it for us because of the layout group, which is very handy. So drag those all in there like so. There we go. And that is good. All right, let's go ahead now and move on to the next step. Let's go to our player first, and I'm actually just going to add some things to the inventory here. So as you can see now, we have 3 new inventories, the body, leg, and hand. And I'm going to make sure my player is fully equipped. I had the armor taken off for a thumbnail. Whoops. So I'm going to put the Fallen Knight set on my character, and I don't think I have a Fallen Knight's glove. No, I don't, so I'm going to make that very quickly. And I'm going to put the Fallen Knight set on my character, and then I'm going to put the Knight set in my inventory. And what I'm going to do is I'm going to have some icons for each, just some quick ones I make in Photoshop, nothing special, just to show you that the logic is working. And then when we start the game, when this is done at the end of the lesson, I'm going to open up the equipment screen, and I'm going to change from the Fallen Knight set, the full Fallen Knight set, to the regular Knight set. And you'll see that my armor will change in game, and the icons on the equipment screen will also change. So now that I have that made, I'm going to add that to the inventory. I'm just going to copy that name there and put in the item name variable for in the future when we do the description screen. Anyway, I'm getting ahead of myself, and now I'm going to go down here and I'm going to create, or I'm going to add one item to each of my inventories, and I'm going to add the Knight's set. So the Knight's helmet, the Knight's chest plate, the Knight's leggings, and the Knight's gloves. Now we're not quite done yet. We have to do one more thing. We have to update the equipment screen when we open it up. And let's actually go down here and let's make sure we have the right on-click events for these inventory buttons as well. So right here, we have to say equip this item. So go down to the body equipment inventory slot, because we just added the script. I don't think we actually added these events. And then go down to body equipment inventory slot and then equip this item. Do the same thing for the legs, and then do the same thing for the hands. There we go. If not, when you try to click the buttons, nothing will happen. You'll be able to click them and they'll populate, but nothing will happen when you click them, so we don't want that. Okay, now over here on the equipment window UI, Let's add 3 variables of type body equipment slot UI, leg equipment slot UI, and hand equipment slot UI. Those were the first scripts we made in this video. And remember, in the last video, we made a function here called load armor on equipment screen. Okay, and we're just going to add on to this. You can see here we're checking to see if we have a helmet, and if we do, if we're wearing one, we're basically putting that icon in our head slot, making it appear on the equipment screen. If we don't have one on, we're making that equipment slot clear out so there's no icon there. So we're going to do the same thing for our body, legs, and hands. So again, all we're doing here now is checking our player inventory. If in our player inventory, our current equipment slot, in this case it's body, does not equal null, then okay, let's go to our body equipment slot UI, which is the image on the equipment screen, and let's add an item, and then we're going to add the item that we're wearing. And that updates the icon so you know you're wearing something. Let's do the same thing here for the legs and the hands, and I believe then we are finished. All right, that looks good. I'm going to drink some tea again. Okay, so now the last one is the hands. If player inventory current hand equipment does not equal null, then we're going to do the same thing as above, but with the hand slot. Whoops, I can't type. I don't know why I type packages. Hand equipment slot UI. No, that's not supposed to be caps. Hand equipment slot UI. Why are you not appearing? I probably misspelled it. Yes, I did. Hand equipment slot. No, there we go. Hand equipment slot. And paste. Dot add item player inventory. Current hand equipment. Oh my goodness, I cannot type right now. What is going on? I almost typed platypus. All right. Oh my goodness, Sebastian. Okay. There we go. Else. Hand equipment slot UI dot clear item. Now let's go down here and drag in these variables right here. Make sure you do that or else the screen won't update. And now if we start the game and I actually open up the equipment screen, I made some simple icons. You can see they're all red. Now if I click the helmet, it changes my helmet as you can see, and the icon changes. Now if I click the chest plate, my chest plate changes and the icon changes. Leggings, the legs will change and my icon changes. And lastly, the gloves, my gloves change and the icon changes. There you go, guys. You have a fully functioning equipment screen where you can swap it out from the menu. In the future, we'll do it so if you press a button while the slot is selected, we'll have it so you can just unequip your equipment without having to change it. We'll cover that in a future video. But yeah, if you guys made this far, please be sure to drop a like. It really does help out my series a whole lot. I want to thank you guys who continually like my videos and comment to appease the YouTube algorithm gods. And a special thank you to my patrons. It's because of you guys I can keep making the content. I will see you guys in the next episode. Talk soon.